Support for the show comes from Capital.com. Capital.com is an award-winning investment platform that aims to accelerate financial inclusion worldwide. For seasoned traders, Capital.com offers competitive, transparent pricing, 24-hour support in over 10 languages, as well as news, analysis, and insights so you can make a more informed decision. If you haven't invested before, Capital.com's education hub includes in-depth courses to help you get started. For more information, visit Capital.com.
If you want inner peace, all the people need to get along inside of you, including the inner critic. The inner critic is there. It ain't going anywhere. And it probably is responsible for your success. So why would you want to get rid of that inner critic? No, you just need to tell it to speak nicely.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Loulou. My guest is Dr. Saliha Afridi. She is the founder and CEO of the Lighthouse Arabia, and she is a leading clinical psychologist in the UAE. I invited Dr. Saliha to talk about, to shed some light on rejection. Dr. Saliha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Loulou. Thank you for having me here.
And it's a pleasure to have you. It's been 2 years since we had a conversation, different times, but
I was very different then.
They were different times.
Yes.
So, Dr. Saliha, I wanted to talk a little bit about the art of hearing no. There's a lot that we hear in the business world about the importance of saying no. That it's a means for us, business leaders take it as a sign of focus. So some of the most successful leaders talk about saying no as a means to be focused versus what you say yes to. But before I talk about that, I wanted to ask you a quick question, given, the current event that we're witnessing at the moment. And this is the third day of the Israel-Palestine war that's been happening, and I've been glued to social media. I think a lot of everybody, at least in this region, has been glued to social media. And as business leaders, you are, not necessarily connected to these events, but you care a lot about these events. And I just wanted to know your thoughts and maybe your advice to people who have been deeply impacted by these events. And I know that I don't want to say that we are victims because, we live here in the UAE and we're completely kind of disconnected from the events on the ground, but it does feel very hard to watch and to see and to read some of the comments that we're seeing on social media.
Yeah. It's a very difficult time, for all of us. And I think it's very important that we realize the impact of vicarious trauma. When wars happened or when tragedies happened, they happened in another place and they happened in another time, and then we would find out about it in the newspaper or on a news headline. Now we're on the ground as bombs are being blown off and bodies are there. Like, it's very visual, it's very graphic, it's very real time, it's very real. And that can impact your nervous system. It can impact you as an individual. So we should not discount the impact of social media on our well-being. Social media just should be contained, but when it's times like this, it really should be. And there is a difference between being informed and being overwhelmed. And it doesn't take much for us to get overwhelmed when the images are this graphic. So I would advise people, be informed, do something, because powerlessness can make us really flooded. So when you act in something, give money, give care, give to a cause that is caring for these people. Do something with that energy that you are feeling right now, which will help you feel less powerless. And limit the news, limit the social media. I know I hear from people, well, what if everyone limited social media? No, not everyone will. When there is a war, when there is a crisis, when there is a situation, everyone has a part they play. right? Even in a war, there are soldiers, there are generals, there are negotiators, there are doctors, there are nurses. Everyone has a role. If everyone became a soldier, then we would lose, right? So there are people who can handle the fight a little bit differently, like know what your role is in that fight. I think when we all decide that we're all going to be soldiers, then who's going to be the one healing, and who's going to be the one negotiating, and who's going to be the one supporting, who's going to be using their words rather than, their guns. Like, we all have to think about what is it that we bring to the fight, and what is it that we bring to the cause. So when we keep that in mind and then empower those around us, make space, I think as a business leader, know that there will be people that need to talk about this. So make spaces for them to talk about this, safe spaces. I know some companies that are bringing in psychologists to do debriefings, and you bring in a psychologist and you do a crisis debriefing for those employees, because there's a lot of people who have family members in these places. I know Afghanistan also. So when I'm talking about crises and devastation, I'm talking about Israel, Palestine, Afghanistan right now, because there's a lot of people that have been affected by the earthquake there as well. And there's a lot of people hurting right now. So we need to make space for people to talk about that.
I agree. There are a lot of people hurting. One more question on that topic with regards to social media. I mean, one of the, I think, the most hurtful thing about social media is all of the comments that you read. And, it makes you feel enraged. It makes you feel upset, helpless. And part of you wants to engage in these discussions. And then you think it's just, it's a bottomless pit. Like, if you go into these discussions, it's never going to end. And it does really impact your mental health. So should you just stay away from that discourse? I mean, part of me feels that, I don't know, actually, because on social media, everybody wants to express an opinion, whether that opinion is valid or whether they know anything about the topic. Everyone just saying whatever. So is it best maybe not to say anything, or is it best to kind of like do your part and say what you believe in or what you think?
I don't think, this is a very personal decision for people. You have to decide what your platform is. You have to decide what your voice is. You have to decide how you're going to use your voice. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, out there for everyone to see. Maybe you use your voice somewhere else. And it's not on social media, but it is within the firm that you work in, or it is within the community that you live in. You have to be answerable to yourself, not to anyone else. And I think if we get caught in, well, why aren't you doing this? You'll never make everyone happy. If you speak against this, they'll say, why didn't you speak about that? And what about that? Mm-hmm. And what about that? Like, there are people hurting all over. Yes. And so it's, if you speak about one cause, what about all the other causes you're not speaking about? So we can't be selective, but we do have to be, true to ourselves. And we should not engage in anything because we feel that that's this is what they're expecting from me. We have to do it because it is, depending on who you are, I guess people are looking at the lighthouse and they are looking at me right now in particular to say something about how do we cope with this. So yes, it is my responsibility as a mental health professional in the region that I have to provide that information. But I don't have to provide a position. Mm-hmm. I don't have to provide a flag. I don't have to get into that conversation. I have to stick to the conversation that I've committed to. So it's really important. For me, it's really important that everyone consider why is it they're engaging in social media and what are they going to do on it. I think getting in these debates with people that are anonymous and yes. that are divisive, it's not going to help anyone. It really isn't. Yes. You have to do your part to make this world a better place, and it doesn't have to be on Instagram.
Great advice. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so going back to our topic about rejection, you often post on your Instagram. It's very educational. You talk about personal experiences as well. You talk about examples from how you were dealing with trauma or pain. So I thought maybe I'd ask you about your relationship with the word no.
Oof. Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, I grew up as, I'm a woman, I'm a South Asian woman from Pakistan. I've had a father who has always said yes, but I live in a society which is very patriarchal and where you just hear a lot of no as a woman. No, you can't do that. No, you can't say this. No, you shouldn't think this. And not necessarily by my parents. My parents have always encouraged me to study or encouraged me to pursue my dreams. But there was a lot of no I heard. And I have a brother and he was allowed to do certain things and I wasn't because I'm a girl and he's a boy. So then I decided like, I'm going to be like a boy or I'm going to be more boy than any boy I know. So whatever it was, first it was met with a no. If I wanted to do sports, it was no. Girls don't do that where I come from. And then it was like, well, what if I wear this? And this is way back when we didn't have like Nike making hijab and all of these other things. You know, it's about how did you show up at sports in a way that was covered? That wasn't a thing back then. And so I had to say, well, what if I cover? Can I do sports then? And so everything that I wanted to do really was met with a no first. And like I said, it wasn't my parents, it was more of a larger community. So if I wanted to go to college, well, is she going to get married first and then go to college? And how's that going to impact her husband? And how's that going to impact her kids? And if I wanted to get my doctorate, well, are you taking care of your children right now? Or are you neglecting them? So it was always a no. And I've always just fought. And then there came a point in my life where, then I moved to Dubai and then it was a no because I'm now in a field of mental health. 15 years ago, I was like one of 6 or 7 psychologists in this country. And how do I start talking about mental health? Well, you don't. You don't talk about mental health. It's a stigma, it's a taboo, you don't do it. Well, how am I going to do it? So I started working with reporters. So everything I have done has been met with a no. When I started the Lighthouse, there was no mental health clinic in Dubai at that time. It's the first mental health clinic in Dubai. They didn't know how to license something that doesn't have doctors and nurses and needles and things like that. Like, how do you do that? So again, it felt like a rejection because it took me over a year to get licensed and to get that clinic licensed. And it was met with breakdowns and no's and wanting to quit and just saying, why am I doing this to myself? So it's really been a whole lot of no's. But every time I was met with a no, I came with a yes of some sort.
It inched you closer to where you wanted, maybe?
Maybe. But let's just say I have a very close relationship to the idea of no and to be rejected. It's something that lives in me. And then I think you need people that are rebellious and they don't hear no. I didn't hear no. I just heard not yet or not this way. So it's also a spirit that was in me. And the older I get, the more I know that I do have a spirit and it has a mind of its own. And it is not necessarily the cognitive mind. It is a force inside of me that does what it does. And when it's met with a no, it usually does something else with it. As a child, I was called, many things like, disobedient or rebellious or defiant. I mean, there were things, but so when a no is said, then you have to get a little bit more creative about how you're going to do things.
I mean, building on that, I think there are a lot of leadership books. I mean, there's Outliers, for example, by Malcolm Gladwell, where he talks about like some of the most transformational leaders having had really hard childhoods or even sometimes abusive childhoods, and how that kind of hardship and the rejection that they got as they were growing up shaped them into who they became. So do you find that a common thing? I mean, because you hear no so much and you get rejected, does that build some kind of grit in you that makes you maybe not hear that no, as you just said?
I think there is nurture and nature involved here. If I hear stories about my childhood from my mom, she said I came out this way. Like I was just going to do it on my own terms. Like I was going to walk when I wanted to. I was going to talk when I wanted to. I was just going to do it my way. So there is a soul's code. And there's a great book I recommend highly, which is The Soul's Code by James Hillman. And he talks about there's a blueprint we're born with. And like the acorn has the oak tree in it. We also have a blueprint. And I think my spirit, I came with that. Of course, I was met with resistance, but I came with a spirit, and that spirit has made me who has resulted in the life that I have lived. Now, I think there are people who go through difficult times in difficult childhoods, and that does make them more gritty, resilient, capable. They're able to dig deep and show up for life. They have resilience. Resilience is not that you don't fall apart. Resilience is that you get back up. Resilience comes from the Latin word resilio, which means to bounce back. Bounce back from what? Hitting the ground. And then so that does condition you that, okay, well, life hit me this way and life hit me this way and nothing happened to me. So they just kind of go with that. So a lot of that has to do with your personality, but your soul's code, as well as, having one supportive person in your life. We can't discount how that can make people resilient. The research shows that even one person on your team, just your side, that says, I've got you and I'm with you. It could be a teacher, it could be a coach. It doesn't even have to be a mother or a father. It could be just one person that says, I believe in you. And that can help people say, well, I'm going to do this.
And this is as you are younger and as you are growing up?
Throughout life.
Throughout.
Yeah.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about maybe the physiology of hearing no? So is it the same as the, fight or flight type reaction when somebody tells you no? Is it the same chemicals?
It could be, depending on how much something means to you. If you say, hey, can I stay out late tonight? And I say no, you're not going to have the same. Unless that going out really meant something to you, then you would get more activated. So depending on what it means to you, it could show you, your reaction could tell you how much this thing means to you. If you don't get activated, then it doesn't mean that much to you. But if you do get activated, then that means it means a lot to you. Now, there are certain individuals that are neurodivergent on the autism spectrum, ADHD, that type of spectrum, that have something which is referred to as rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And that they have a harder time with perceived or real rejection. And so they can become a lot more dysregulated than an individual who is not neurodivergent. So it's just something to keep in mind, that it could be your neurobiology. It could be just what something means to you. It could be just that you didn't sleep well that night and then you heard the no the next morning. A lot of things come into how you're going to react to that no. But we are wired to belong. We need to belong. And that rejection can feel like, okay, in a society, in a world we lived in where we needed people to accept us, we needed to belong, and if we were alone, we would die. That's our coding. Okay, our coding is from thousands of years ago. We are coded to need to belong to something. So if that feels like I'm being now rejected out of something, it's going to hit a little bit differently. You're going to have a different type of reaction, and it would be a fight or flight. This is survival kicking on at that point.
I feel that, at least from my experience as an entrepreneur, when I went out and when I was asking for things that were quite vital, right? Like funding, for example, for the business, or trying to get a certain partner on board, I felt that the no's that came from people that I really admired or respected, they really hurt the most. Yeah. And I always thought, you think these guys are my friends or they know me and we have a relationship, and then you hear that no, and it hits so hard. So why is it the case? I mean, why do we put so much emphasis sometimes on a certain person's no, versus if it was someone else, for example, that we didn't really think too highly of?
I think it's very normal. We want approval. We want validation. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be accepted. And if we value that person, it's going to mean a lot more to us. It's a very normal reaction to have, that I value you so much. Can you please see me and see what I'm doing as worthy? So I think even people with high self-esteem and high self-worth would find that challenging. Now, there are some people who don't have high self-esteem, or good self-esteem, I should say, good self-worth, that can really find that very hurtful. They can quit and they say, never mind, I don't have any belief in myself. Okay, that we're now into a place where we need to work on your self-esteem and your self-worth. But I think hearing no and being hurt is just a very normal reaction, and wanting approval from those we value is very normal and very natural.
So is there a way to make the no a bit more of a soft landing than for it to land in a really hard way? So I'll give an example. If I am making an important ask from someone, but I know that there is a chance that they may say no, I try to give them an opportunity to say no gracefully, let's say, without it being really hurtful to me. So I would say something like, I would really appreciate it if you would do this to me, but I do understand that you have a lot of pressure on your time, and I would understand that, if this is not something that you can do. So instead of going in for a hard ask and getting a hard no, are there ways maybe that you can work on that ask so that you don't get a hard no?
That's a great question. If you already build in a no, then you're going to get a no. I mean, for me, it's, you have to ask for what you want.
Okay.
And you have to have the courage to be able to hear the no.
Okay.
And so I think people who are in the world of manifesting and in the world of NLP and these types of things, you have to build in the yes, not the no. And so how are you going to have them say yes? How are you going to persuade them and influence them to be able to say yes instead of giving them an out to say no? That's what I would focus on, which is very different.
It is.
Yeah, it's a different way of positioning that I would be happy to intern for you. I would be happy to come in where you are. I would be happy to do it at any time of any day that it works for you. So you're basically saying, these are all the ways I'm going to make it work. Just say yes. So rather than, I can understand that you're so busy, go ahead and say no to me. So if you gave me that, I would definitely say, yeah, I am too busy, actually, and I'm not going to say yes.
So why am I doing that? Am I too scared of being rejected? That's it.
You are buffering yourself. You are going in to say, let me say no for you, so you don't, I don't feel hurt.
Okay.
And that is someone who is really afraid of rejection. And that is someone who is not living vulnerably, or not, when we talk about vulnerability, this is what it means in real time. Vulnerability is that I'm gonna ask for what I want, and it's gonna hurt either way. Even if I get it, it's gonna hurt because it requires something of you. If I don't get it, it's gonna hurt because it's gonna hurt. So am I capable to take that on? I think that's what vulnerability means. Can I dare to be courageous and say, yes, I want this, and then hear no, and let it break my heart, and let it break my heart. And my heart breaks every day because that's what it takes to be living courageously. But I always tell myself and my children that hearts don't break down. They don't break. They break open. And so let yourself break open and expand more and be more vast, because that's what it takes to live a courageous life.
I feel that part of what I do this is maybe a little bit cultural. I feel that I think that we have a culture here in the Arab world, particularly, that is not very, accepting of failure, of rejection. There's a lot of pride, I think, that you're kind of raised on. And maybe this is, I agree with you, with what you said. I do feel that sometimes I'm just trying to protect myself from a no by just giving someone, this off-ramp.
Yeah.
But do you feel that culture, plays a big role here?
Sure. Collectivistic cultures where we have to save face and what will everybody say holds a higher weight than in individualistic cultures. But more so, you being a woman is going to be also impacting how you ask. I think as women, we are socialized to be polite, and we are, in this part of the world, to not assert, to not be clear. We're supposed to be sugarcoating things, and we are supposed to be nice and not ask, speak only when spoken to, that type of conditioning. It's kind of in the water. It's how we are conditioned. So whether it's collectivistic cultures or being a woman in this part of the world, I'm sure that influences it, yes.
I never thought about it this way. So you're saying that a man would probably ask and be very clear about what they want.
Yes.
But then a woman might think twice and think, maybe
Sure.
I'm just asking for too much.
And be very apologetic while asking.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So even someone who's like me, who's 42 years old, who's done all these things in my life, and still I have that fear. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's almost as if it's like in our DNA. When it's so, like I said, it's in the water we drink. It's so subtle how we are conditioned in this part of the world to be apologetic, to be the supporter, not the one who's the center. Like, there's so many things we just feel we need to do. No one told us, said, hey, listen, this is what it means to be a woman in this part of the world. No. It's just communicated in these subtle ways where we don't ask.
So what you're saying is, be confident in what you ask. This is what you want. Be very clear about it, and just take the answer.
Well, I'm saying a little bit more than that. Or maybe I haven't said it yet, but I will say a bit more than that. I would say you've got to know yourself. That's one thing that I would say. More self-aware you are, the more courageous you will be. The more you will know who you are, and that you are not defined by a yes or a no. You are more than a yes or a no. So self-awareness is, I don't know how you can get through something that is a big no without self-awareness. The second thing that I would say is that be super clear and thoughtful and considerate about your ask. Before you go in, why are you asking this? Who are you asking? What do you need? When do you need it? What are the deadlines? Be clear. Because if you are unclear, you are going to create a lack of clarity in the other person too, and then you're just not going to get what you want. So be super clear about what you want. And that could be that you need to spend time with a coach first defining that, or you need to spend time with a mentor first defining that. But spend a lot of time up front so that when you sit in front of the person, you know exactly what you want. You know exactly what that looks like. And when they say, well, I can't give you that, but I'll give you this, you know that that's not going to work because you've already thought about that. So be clear and be firm.
Okay, so now that you've mustered the courage and you've asked someone for something, whether you're a creative pitching an idea, or an entrepreneur trying to get funding, or someone at work trying to get your project approved, etc., and then you get a no. What are some of the kind of the strategies that you would recommend for people to deal with a no? Whether it's psychological or whether it's physical as well.
Well, and we're assuming that this is something that's very important to the person.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to raise money for my business. I've been working on it for a year. I have a team of people. I went and spoke to investors and they said no. So how do you cope with that?
There was something I read a while back which said that the wall is not there to keep you. The wall is not something that keeps you out, but it's there to see how badly you want it. Okay. So like when you come against a wall, go find another path and then another and another. So if it is something that means a lot to you, then stay the course. Mm-hmm. You will hear many no's, as we know from all types of stories like J.K. Rowling and, I don't know. So, I can list so many that heard no. Oprah Winfrey, J.K. Rowling, Disney. These guys were told that no, you're not for this. Oprah was told she's not for TV. Disney was told that he lacked creativity. J.K. Rowling was homeless and heard no many times before she got Harry Potter published. So, you're going to hear no. Mm-hmm. And you're going to need to... That's when you need to know, is this important to me? Mm-hmm. Do I want this? And this is where your why becomes very important. What am I doing this for? Is this my soul's code? For me, when I was starting the Lighthouse, I felt I had no option. I had no choice. It was not like, oh, these guys don't, they don't know how to license, or and everyone told me I would fail because mental health in this part of the world, I was like, no, it's not going to happen. As well. It's super taboo. Like, what are you doing? You're crazy, basically. But I was like, okay, I won't stop. I will stop. But I couldn't. So if it's such a loud part of you, then you've got to keep going and you've got to honor that part.
But in the moment, Dr. Saliha, I know that yes, of course, you will use the no as a springboard. And ultimately, if you zoom out, this is just a short period in your life. And then things will, life will go on, basically. And I talk about this all the time. And, I've been through a lot of no's as well in my career. And I've always bounced back. But in the moment, when you hear that no, what are some strategies to deal with it? So
cry,
okay.
Cry, go talk to someone you love, have them hold space for you, comfort yourself, self-soothe. This is painful, honor the pain. It wouldn't hurt if it didn't mean that much. It only hurts because it means so much to you. If you have a God that you have a relationship with, pray, connect to your spirit. It's really important. The research shows having a religion, spirituality is a very important protective factor. Engage in self-care. In the days after the no, be gentle with yourself. Don't put yourself back out there right away. You need to recover from that. So, as you would from a battle wound, you just went to battle, you lost. And you heal, you spend time on that. It might take 3-4 weeks before you feel like you're ready to go back out there again. It's okay, take some time. So those are just things in the aftermath of the no. Seek support, get counsel, see if you need to rethink your strategy a little bit, get support from a coach if you need. Get people that you value to feedback on, okay, well, this is what happened. What can I learn from this? Make meaning out of that no. Why did they say no to you? When someone says no to me, I want to know why. Why did you say that? Because then I know how to rethink my strategy. Well, we don't know how to license mental health clinics. Okay, well, I now need to go figure out how mental health clinics get licensed, and then I'll come back with that answer. So think about why. And I really appreciate it when we're hiring and we send a rejection email to someone who wants to work at the Lighthouse, or they say, can you tell me what it is that you rejected me for? Was it years of experience? So now go get years of experience and come back and apply. So, think about why they said, ask them why they said no. There's value in that.
But I think so many times you don't get that closure. I mean, so many times you don't have the luxury to get that closure.
Or you don't ask. Go in there prepared that they might say no and what's going to be. You know how like in the Grammys, everybody who gets, not in the Grammy, Emmy or Grammy, whichever, like if you're nominated, they go in with the winning speech. Everyone comes in with a winning speech. Okay, go in there with a winning speech. Go in there with a losing strategy. What are you going to do if they say no? You need to be ready with those questions right there, because if you catch them right there, they will give it to you. We just don't think it's viable. We don't think, it's too risky. Why do you think it's too risky? Like, ask them. Yeah. They will tell you. They usually say no for a reason.
Yeah, that's true. I think, but from my experience in the business world, I think a lot of times you don't get that closure. If you're there face to face, probably. But let's say in a job application, as an example, I mean, sometimes you never even hear from them. So I think you don't always get that closure.
Yeah.
But when the stakes are high, do you feel that people tend to either like mea culpa type behavior, like it's, judge themselves, or sort of blame the person saying no or resent them? So do people take ownership, you feel, of the situation, or does it become very unhealthy?
Well, it depends on their attribution style. So there are people who have this internal locus of control versus an external locus of control, or they might attribute things to being their fault or the other person's fault. And if you are, that person doesn't understand me and that person doesn't see the value in me, that might be a little bit healthier than if I'm a failure or I'm not good enough. So it just depends on your attribution style. Always having a balanced, realistic view is good. It also depends on how loud your inner critic is. And if that inner critic is loud and it is shaming, like, it could be very debilitating for people. So I always tell people, like, go become friends with your critic, because it's going to be like your biggest supporter if you know how to transform your relationship with them. It can be transformed. I've done it. I know it. And sometimes it does go back to its old ways, like, oh, come on. And then it's like, okay, no, I remember, be kind. So you can train that inner critic to be kind, because it is there to protect you. It is there to support you. It is there to make sure you don't make mistakes. It is there so you don't fail. But the way it goes about it is usually not very helpful. So change your relationship with that inner critic, and you might find that you learn a lot more from these no's.
I feel that with people who are really ambitious and very driven, I feel that inner critic is very strong. I mean, I struggle with that a lot. It's something that I'm always actively trying to work on. So I try to practice gratitude every night, for example, to talk about things that I'm grateful for, things that I've done for myself, I've achieved. I don't know. I try to see the little things and celebrate them. It's always a big challenge, that inner critic.
Well, the inner critic could be a whole other show, but I would say to people, do not silence the inner critic. Do not get rid of the inner critic. Do not dismiss the inner critic. All the things that we've learned we should do with the inner critic, don't do it. If you want inner peace, all the people need to get along inside of you, including the inner critic. The inner critic is there. It ain't going anywhere. And it probably is responsible for your success. So why would you want to get rid of that inner critic? No, you just need to tell it to speak nicely. And when you do, and it's like, come on, you idiot, what were you thinking? No. We don't talk like this in this house. Say it nicely. Well, you could have been more prepared. Okay, I heard that. And all of a sudden, the message of the inner critic is actually really valuable. It's interface that needs to be updated to being more compassionate and kind. People are afraid to get rid of their inner critic because they think they'll become mediocre. The research shows just the opposite. They show that when you have shame, your learning centers in your brain shut down. And that inner critic is really good at shaming. So I will not stand for shame. I will stand for feedback, but I will not stand you shaming me. So it's literally having a dialogue with this part of you that says, all right. And I talk about the inner committee. I have a whole board of advisors in your head, in my soul, in my head. I don't know, it's all inside of me. And the whole board gets to speak. But I am the chairman. I make the decision. There is the sage, and there's the rebel, and there's the saboteur, and there's the inner critic, and then there's the lazy one and the procrastinator. I got them all. And they all have the right to be there. I just don't have to listen to all of them. And there are days where I'm like, yep, lazy one, I'm going to let you have this one today. Let's be lazy. And I make a choice, and it is a very conscious choice that I'm going to be lazy today. I will do nothing of value or productivity. So at least there is a conversation, and then you actually have inner peace. You have all of these parts integrated, and they all have a voice, and they all are heard. You just don't have to do everything that each part says all the time.
Okay, and this is your inner critic. What about your environment? So what about if you're in an environment, again, we spoke about culture a little bit earlier, but what if your immediate environment isn't very supportive?
Find one that is.
Okay.
And thank God we live in a world where we have technology and we can access people from every corner of the earth. You find your tribe. We need not a lot of people, 5 to 8. That's all you need to really feel like you have a belonging. And they don't all have to exist in the same space, but you need people. You can't be like, oh, well, my mom says this and my dad says that, so it's hopeless. No, go find your people. And usually it's not the people that are related to you that are going to be your people.
No,
because it's the people that want to see you grow. They want to see you succeed. They want to be on your team. Those are the people. Go invest in those. Love your mom and dad and do what you need to do, but they might not be the people that you go to when things go bad or when things hurt. They might not be the people that you go to. So find your people, build your tribe, invest in your tribe, hunt for your tribe if you have to, but you've got to find those people.
Do you believe, is there too much weight put on success today? I mean, again, going back to social media, you see a lot of videos about, people making it, whether they are content creators or whether they are selling Bitcoin or, they really amplify success and successful people, Elon Musk, like all these kind of mega successful people. Do you feel that puts a lot of pressure on people basically and, it makes them more vulnerable to things like rejection as well?
It depends on how you define success. Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people today don't have a very strong sense of self. Their self is defined externally through external channels. You tell me if I'm good. You tell me if I'm liked. You tell me if I'm worth following. You decide that. There's a lot of power you have versus me. Who am I? What are my values? What do I believe? That can really start to come in question. I remember when I started my Instagram account, for me, it was like, okay, I was in 6 months of therapy before I went on. Why am I doing it? Who am I doing it for? What will I post? What is my message? What will I come across? What will be the things that I contend with? Because I'm about to put myself out to the world, and I can expect that the world will come and judge me. Are you ready for that, Sal? Can you handle that? Can you handle the heat? Can you handle the projections people will place on you? They will not know you. Can you handle that? So I had to invest heavy in my self-awareness, because then when someone comes and says, you don't believe in this, or how dare you don't speak up about that, or how come you look like this? Like, I know who I am. That's you. I know where I end and where you begin. That's your opinion. Thanks for sharing it. I know what I believe, and I will not need to get in that fight with people. So this is what is lacking, and I'm really concerned about the younger generations, because they get social media handed to them at, 9, 10, 11, and they are not developing a very strong sense of self. Who are you? Not who is liked. Right?
There's a lot of that external validation that is so important.
Yeah. And so I think I'm not sure what the original question was, but yes, it does put this pressure on to see all of these people succeeding, and then I have to be like that. But wait, do I even want that? Do I want that life? Or what life do I want? So see, success is being defined for us. You should look like this, you should dress like that, you should travel like this, you should eat like that. Why? I want this. So being clear about what you want and what success means to you will help you handle the pressure. Because then you'll be like, no, I actually don't want that. You might feel a little bit triggered, like, ooh, that looks so good. But then you remember, no, I want this. And that comes at a price.
Yeah.
And if I want that, then you need to be ready to give up this, and that. Because sometimes we don't see that what that person who is in that successful position had to give up. And are you willing to pay that price? Nope. Okay. Then you do you and let them do them. You can be inspired, and I think that's one of the things that happens with social media. We don't see the hard work leading up to the success. So we just want the success, but we don't want to do the hard work.
We say it a lot in entrepreneurship as well. Sometimes the entrepreneur is building for 10 years and then all of a sudden, they're successful, and people look at it as if it was like an overnight success, but it's a 10-year overnight success.
Yes.
But people don't tend to see that. I think, social media, I think is very, very challenging. Even someone who's experienced, even someone, my age and my experience gets triggered by certain things. And I think it's very difficult to, as you said, you have to be very strong and really know yourself and constantly work on that as well, so that you're not impacted and affected by what's happening around you. And I think it's very challenging.
Sorry, I cut you off. But I have 2 hours of therapy every week. I've done that for almost a decade. That is my commitment to being out there in the world and to know who I am. Because I am met with a lot of judgment as a working mom. I'm met with a lot of judgment as a professional, as an entrepreneur. I had to, it's been now 13 years going on the Lighthouse, but it wasn't like that in the beginning. There was a lot. So I had to invest in remember who I am. Remember who you are, Sal. Remember who you are. Remember what you are. Remember what you do. You have to constantly be doing that. People say, oh, I did therapy 5 years ago. Oh my God, you are a different human being from 5 years ago. What are you doing today to take care of that and to stay anchored in that? The more anchored you are in yourself, the easier, actually I should rephrase, the less painful it will be when someone says no to you. Whether it's a business proposition or a marriage proposition or a relationship, whatever you hear, if you know who you are and what your truth is, the outside voices and noises are less, they deter you less, they affect you less.
Yeah, but that is so hard, by the way. What you're saying is the simplest, most hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
I think one of the most difficult questions that somebody can ask me is what do you want? I mean, sometimes in certain areas I know what I want, but in a lot of areas I don't know. So I think it's a lot of work to get to that point that you're talking about.
It is a discipline. 100%.
It's not easy.
100%. It is a
and
discipline of an athlete.
And you could be taking in different directions. Sometimes you might be very influenced by the people that you care about, who think maybe you should try this or do that. And I think we're all for that. It's very hard.
Yeah.
Where do you go for inspiration? You've been through, let's say, rejection. You've had a tough time. You want to try to find yourself, and maybe you're working on that. Are there kind of sources of inspiration or even therapies that you can recommend for people?
Well, I work with C-suite individuals, people at the top of their game, senior partners or, director level type of positions. And they are highly functioning. They don't have a diagnosis, and they're engaged in insight-oriented work. So they are there to be more self-aware, because that will make them better leaders. So that's the first thing that I would say, is engage in insight-oriented work. This old medical model of you need treatment to see a therapist, put it away. You need a mirror. And that's what a psychologist is a mirror. People say, well, I have a coach. No, coaches are different. Coaches are present and future-oriented. Psychologists take present, future, past, future, present. They move back and forth through these different places. And you need to understand the past if you are going to move forward with commitment and conviction. So I would say do that. I would also say that inspiration is everywhere. You don't have to go anywhere for inspiration. Mm-hmm. If you are pausing through your day, just small pauses. I was coming here. I have my phone and everything, but I just decided to close my eyes and just meditate for 10 minutes in the car, just connecting. So take 5 minutes here, 3 minutes there, 10 minutes there. When you are connected to yourself, you are connected to your values. You will see inspiration in the child that you just saw, or your administrative assistant who just works like a Jedi to manage your schedule, who, you will meet inspiration everywhere on the path, but it's the eye of the spirit that can only see that. So if you are connected to your spirit, you will see inspiration in many places. So pay attention to the things that make you go, and go in that direction. That's the direction of the spirit. But don't think it's only going to happen with mentors and books and, TED Talks. It actually could be right there, right under your nose, in your children, in your, in your taxi or Uber driver. It's really everywhere.
So if I have to recap the conversation and say, the art of hearing no is what to you?
The more you say yes to yourself, the easier it is to hear no from another person. Saying yes to yourself means being compassionate, being connected, listening to yourself, being present for yourself, showing up for yourself, taking care of yourself. Say yes to yourself. The more you say yes to yourself, the easier it gets to hear no from others.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It was really a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Loulou.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Conversations with Loulou with Dr. Saliha Afridi. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out conversationswithloulou.com to look at all the other episodes. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to or watch your podcast so that you can get notified when the latest episodes drop. And do give us a rating and a review. It really helps in getting the show discovered. I've also left a link to a podcast listener survey in the show notes. I would really appreciate it if you can spend 7 minutes of your time to fill it up. See you in the next few weeks.